All right, everybody, welcome to the Tactical Games Podcast. We're here with Jared Halbert and Zack Rodman. We're going to go through some brief intros real quick. If you guys don't know Jared, if you're kind of new to the sport, Jared was the owner before I was. Jared was the 2020 Tactical Games National champion from the first ever Tactical Games National Championship and the 2021 National Champion. Jared's been a competitor in the sport really since early on, probably the winningest competitor. I don't know, maybe up there, pretty close to that. And Zack Rodman's a cop somewhere. So that's about what we got for intros. Go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves, please. Good. Go ahead, Zack.
I'm Zack Rodman. I've been a policeman for 16 years in a small-ish town in Indiana. I've been on the SWAT team for a few years, did some training, and I found the tactical games in 2019. Ended up in a lane next to him, and I had a really good time. Had some equipment failures, and picked up a couple new babysitters along the way, and I never left.
What was your first event?
Meridian 2019.
Nice. All right, Jared.
So Meridian in 2019 was my first event, and I picked up a child dependent. There, I don't get any tax breaks from it though. And from there, I guess that was I think that was one of the first public ones. Uh-huh. So they had two. One was like an invitation only, like proof of concept, and then after that there was another one that was like where they invited some like YouTube guys and stuff like that. And then I think it was like Bill Cochran made a deal on Facebook that he was going to this, so I showed up to the one in Meridian. And anyway, I think there was a group of 3 gunners that show up, and we all competed and had a great time, and then just kept coming back after that. And then I guess a year later at the same place is where I met Nick. Yeah. Fast forward, I guess, to January 2021, and Tim Burke was kind of in a position where, in the tactical games, was kind of in a position where there needed to be a new owner, and me and Tim talked about it, and I worked out a deal with him. And then fast forward another 2 years, and I didn't want to travel anymore. And anyway, the sport definitely needs somebody that can be there and present and not at home with kids and doing other stuff. So I felt like my time and what I had to offer had come to an end, meaning turning the business around type thing. And then definitely it needed new energy, new. I'm more of a spreadsheet guy, and that time was done. So it was a perfect time to transfer over. And anyway, that's where we are now, skipping over a bunch of stuff.
So 2020 Meridian was my first event, and I actually met both of you guys for the first time. And looking back, I think Zack looked homeless when the first time I met him. You had a beard that was like down to the middle of your chest and hair that was past your shoulders. And
my mom still loved me. That's all that matters.
What were you doing at the time? Why'd you look like that?
I did undercover narcotics for 9 years.
Oh. You were doing narcotics, or you did undercover narcotics?
No,
okay.
Purchasing.
He probably did it.
No, I have not.
Consumed. Training day?
No, it's not like training day.
That's what I imagine every day in a narcotics unit is training day. Is that not what it's like? No.
He also has some experience with other undercover work that maybe he could talk about a little bit.
On another podcast,
We'll talk about that later. All right, so small town in Indiana. You're a police officer. Tell us about your normal 9 to 5, your normal day. What does a day look like for you?
Well, it's changed here recently. After doing quite a few years in the narcotics unit, I was reassigned to the training division. So, which is like something I'm pretty passionate about.
Is that like when you fuck up really bad and they can't fire you? They're like, I guess we'll put you in training.
If it was presented to me eloquently. So, yeah. There was some people that retired out, and the position was open. I was happy to take it.
Yeah, you've definitely expressed to me your joy and interest in training and how much you love that.
Yeah, 100%.
So as a person that's been a law enforcement officer and as a person that's like moved through the ranks of law enforcement, where's the value that you find in training?
I feel as if it's one of the most important divisions in a police department that people don't typically like to dump a lot of money into.
Yep.
It's more of an insurance policy if you look at it like that. Because if you're ill trained, everything falls back on what you're being taught and what your guys are doing and how they're reacting to things through their training on the street. So I mean, other than the patrol division, I feel like it's an extremely important area of the department.
Yeah. So, like, what's a typical training that a law enforcement officer would go through? Like, just give us an example of one.
I mean, we have a certain amount of hours for firearms, defensive tactics, EVOC, emergency vehicle operations.
Yep.
Those are the three major skills that we cover. But we also do some cultural stuff, how to deal with
Like a dance class, or
not necessarily that. Mental illness type of things.
Sure.
Training's always changing with what society brings us to have to, operate with.
Sure. Now, so in that, like, who typically facilitates the instruction? Because this is I'm going to go into another question here. So I'm curious, when you offer training at the department, who facilitates the instruction?
So we have a number of instructors in each discipline. So we may have 4 or 5 defensive tactics guys, a couple of EVOC guys, some firearms guys.
Yep.
And it's always changing as guys retire,
Yep.
or maybe somebody's done it for a long time, they're not passionate about it anymore, and we hire new guys that are, that love it and want to be a part of it. So we're always kind of rotating it, but we keep it a pretty good standard across the table, so everybody's teaching, the same content.
Curriculum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, our training is changing too. The state requires different things every year, and we have to keep up to date with that. On top of like what I feel or what we feel is important to the patrolman responding to all the calls.
Yep. Now, so one of the things that came up yesterday, and it's kind of fortuitous, is there was a post that Jared made about training, about people actually providing training and the qualifications that you need to have, or the perception of qualification that you need to have. It seems like there are a lot of people out there that just say, I'm a trainer, and then offer just like an absolute shit class. So like, I enjoyed the post that you made. What were your intentions behind that? I thought it was a good one.
Oh, yes.
You.
I didn't
Jared.
post it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, there's a lot of professions out there in the world where you can just self-proclaim yourself as I am a, and there's really no qualification to say what you are, right? So I guess in the training world, it's frustrating to see, and I'll start this off by saying that I feel comfortable talking about it because I myself have no interest in training anybody. I have trained a few people in the tactical game space that ended up doing really well, but the relationship that I have with them is different, meaning it's more like you can come to the range when I'm there and I'm going to practice and you can practice with me.
Yeah.
And you can ask me questions when I'm reloading my magazines.
Don't do that. And then.
Yeah. And then I also have a very blunt way of talking to people, and there's like, only a certain kind of person can handle that kind of stuff. And it's not that it's just kind of the way I'll see something and it just comes out instead of filtering it to be more soft about it, I guess. So anyway, because there is no qualification, anybody can say that they are an instructor, and I feel like there's a responsibility to prove yourself somewhere, somehow, in a measurable way, right? So anybody can say that they're a pro shooter. Cool. If you're a pro shooter, I want to see your resume before I hand you a check. Just like if I was going to hire you for a job, I want to see your resume. I want to see that you are worth what I'm paying you. And in this arena, I want to make sure that I'm going to walk away from your class without getting shot, right? Like that you're going to be able to handle the class, handle the atmosphere, handle somebody that may not know what they're doing and is kind of being dangerous. And if you haven't been around stuff a long time, to look at somebody walking up, and you can kind of look at the way they have their stuff on, their holster set up, their magazines, maybe their magazines backwards. If you have a lot of experience, you can look at the way people have their gear set up before you even start and identify a couple of people, put them in a place without saying anything, put them in a place in the firing line where you already have somebody else kind of standing there that's going to be their focus for the day. And usually with like 99.999% accuracy, without seeing anybody shoot, or before you see anybody shoot, you can pick out the people that probably are going to need some more assistance. Those things come by seeing that a lot. So
is that why you were next to me in Meridian?
Yes. And that's why Raven was on the other side. They put the two guys that know what they're doing. But the other thing is that so let's say you're really passionate about guns, right? And you want to introduce people to guns. You want to that is great. Don't charge for a class and don't call it a class. Say, hey, I'm going to the range. I really like shooting. And if you ever want to go, come out with me. So then you can go out in an atmosphere that is, you're not getting paid to do it.
Yep.
You get to spend time one-on-one with somebody that is like a friend, more like a friend atmosphere. You're not necessarily teaching them, but if you've competed in a shooting sport, you've learned safety, and you're probably qualified to teach them like, hey, this is the condition the pistol needs to be in before you put it back in your holster.
Yeah.
This is how, this is the etiquette. This is some safety protocol, stuff like that. And you're getting experience at being an instructor without being paid to be one and without any expectation of performance. As soon as you set up a class and accept payment, you've now entered the arena of, you need to know what you're talking about. You need to have a resume that proves to know what you're talking about. And as somebody else said, like a previous job that you've held doesn't necessarily qualify you for that.
Yeah. Like proficiency in a specific arena doesn't mean that you can be an instructor. Even
Exactly.
mastery in a specific arena doesn't mean you can be an instructor.
And like, I'll use myself as a perfect example. If you've never touched a gun before, I'm not your guy. Like I have a lot of trouble trying to explain to people like the very basic things. But if you already know what you're doing, I can facilitate information, give you tips and stuff. But you need to take that stuff and learn it like kind of by doing it.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to explain. I mean, I've
reps.
worked,
Yeah.
and like correcting people's reps, but not saying like, this is how you hold the gun.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I know that there are people in the space out there that are accepting money, and there are also people that are running training companies that are hiring people that are not qualified, and they know it.
Yeah.
And that really, really bothers me, because the consequences can be deadly for somebody that shouldn't be teaching a class or teaching somebody. So,
well, it also like it sours the taste in the mouth of the person that got that received the instruction.
Oh yeah.
There's a limited amount of people that are in this space right now, and there's a lot of instructors that are out there, it seems like. And if I go and I spend $600, $800, $1,000 on a course and it's shit, mm-hmm. I'm never going to go back to another course. I'm just going to assume that everybody out there, this is what they're doing, especially if it's a more, there's a name behind it that's associated with it. You're gonna get soured by it.
That's what I just kind of call it. It's what I usually call it is a tactical asshole, which I think that a lot of people I've never met an extremely talented shooter that is an asshole when they're trying to teach somebody.
Yeah,
they are generally, they have nothing to prove. They aren't trying to like beat their chest. They aren't like yelling at you like you just got to, basic training. Yeah. They're very calm, make you feel comfortable. And that's typically the mark of somebody that's proficient at what they're doing, is you feel confident in what's going on. You don't feel like you're getting screamed at the entire time.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's what that was about. But, the still open-ended part of that discussion is which you don't have to compete in order to be qualified to train somebody,
Correct.
right? So then what is the qualifier? How do you go out and make sure that the person that you're taking the class from knows what they're talking about? And I don't know the answer to that. And that's why I was asking that question, really, and to point out a few things. But anyway, maybe Zack can talk about how you can find a good instructor.
So Zack, if you were going out and hiring a trainer to facilitate training for your department, what are some markers that you would look for?
Well, there's a lot of reputable training agencies for police agencies.
Team One Network is one that's definitely been involved with us.
Our academy, it has to be a accepted training for us to get training hours.
Yep.
A certain amount of training hours. So when you're training cops, it's totally different, right? So there's a certain mentality for some, and I equate, for me, as a trainer on my department. I did baseball lessons after I left college, like hitting and catching, and I'm pretty easygoing for the most part. So it's your job, kind of as a trainer or a coach. I use the analogy of baseball all the time.
Yeah.
You have 12 kids on a team, and all different personalities, but it's your job to be able to connect and to get your message through to each one of them.
Yep.
And maybe they don't all react to you barking at them, or there's other ways to connect with them. And I think as a trainer, a coach, whatever, the sign of a good one is one that can recognize the people that they're dealing with and be able to connect with them in a way that they don't have to have a guard up.
Yeah.
Right. Because as policemen, we're supposed to have our poop in a group, I guess. And we don't sometimes. And it's okay. That's why we're at training.
Well, when we facilitate our trainings, one of the most common things that I see from people coming from law enforcement is an aversion to wanting to learn. They signed up and they wanted to be there, but when it's somebody that isn't in law enforcement trying to provide a block of training to them, they seem to come in guarded, and then as soon as they realize what they were taught might be proficient, but might not be the actual best way to execute, it's like, oh shit, I really need to learn from this person. And that guard comes down, and then they really start to learn.
Yeah, cops are pretty good about waiting for a minute to see kind of what's going on in their environment. And
you hear a lot of, well, that's not what I learned at my department. And that's fine, but what's guaranteeing that your department provides the best quality training? Because we see law enforcement all over the organization, or all over the country. Not everybody's getting the best quality training.
Yeah, I've always, me personally, I became an instructor for a lot of reasons, and one of them being I knew they were higher level class, instructor level classes were higher level classes, so it would make me better.
Yeah.
Also, but with that, I gained a lot of cool things that I could share with people to make them safer, to make them more efficient.
Yep.
And for me, serving the department that I do, I grew up in that community, and I have 3 sons, and I'm sure one of them is probably going to walk through the door of that department one day.
Yep.
And I want to make sure that it's in a good place. All these new young guys coming in, each one looks younger, and you want to give them tools to win.
Well, that gap between those young guys and your kids continues to close.
Yeah. So ultimately you want to provide good service to the place that you live and invest in.
For sure. All right, well, we'll segue into the next question. So let's talk about your 2023 seasons, go over kind of a recap. Zack, we'll start with you. Where did you compete this year, and how'd you do?
I went to New Mexico, went to South Carolina.
You beat 3 other guys there? That was your first place finish this year?
No?
Oh, my
bad. I lost by a little bit.
Oh. Who'd you lose to? I thought you won that one.
No, it was Jake Fabricus.
Oh, Jake. Yeah, Jake's coming back this year too.
Zack.
Yeah,
he just got Instagram. I saw
He did. He popped up the other day. I screenshotted it. I go, "Hey man, is this you? Or somebody using your likeness?" He goes, "No, it's me."
He's got 5 followers right now.
Yeah.
I'm already in his DMs talking shit.
He's on the rise.
I think he's involved in recruiting now, so he's out. Okay. He can be public facing.
He's a great dude. He's been around for a while too.
Yeah.
He's always been very competitive.
Jake, if you ever watch this, I apologize for telling you I was going to kick the shit out of you at Nationals in 2021. I didn't mean it.
That was smart.
His barbell rolled into mine. It was a whole thing.
No, I went to New Mexico, South Carolina, and I was with E and West Virginia. And then
No, South Carolina, you went with E.
Oh, you were
I was
serious with
E
Jake.
in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It was funny. It was a
started a
total
fight?
accident.
I just started fighting with him.
I thought he was joking.
No. I thought you were watching. That's why I thought you knew about it when it happened. Anyways.
I can barely pay attention to my own life.
You competed with him in South Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then West Virginia with E.
Yeah.
And then Georgia.
And then nationals.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was
Alright.
pretty busy.
So that was a busy-ass competitive year. Jared, what about you? It seemed like you, start of the year, you had freedom again, so you were able to compete. You jumped in.
So in nationals last year, 5 minutes into it, I tore my hamstring. 5 minutes into the first event, I tore my hamstring. So there was a period of time there where I got a break, and then I also offloaded the tactical games. So competing, I can say this now. I couldn't say it before, and now Nick has experienced it once, or maybe twice. Once.
Yeah.
Competing while you own the tactical games might be the most stressful experience I've ever put up with in my entire life, and I wish I never would have done it. Each time I was like, I'm never doing this again, but I like competing a lot, so I would forget and do it again. But anyway, so it took me just a little while to come back from the hamstring thing, and then I think the first competition was with Zack in the partner match. Then I think the second one was partner match with Megan. And
Utah was in there somewhere too.
Yeah, but I can't remember if that was before or after Megan. Then I competed at Utah, and then the championship. I think that was it.
You won the first team event with Zack.
Yeah.
You won Utah, and then you won the team event with Kennedy.
Megan carried us the whole way.
She was actually kicking ass that entire
I
weekend.
was
That was awesome
terrified I wasn't going to be like
great.
what I needed to
the
be that
standard.
week.
You did great on the run. Hey, I'm running down the hill with E, and I see Meg. I'm like, where's Jared?
All right, so it's fine. Nobody else saw it, but I'll talk about it because Megan needs to be. Megan waited for me at the top of the hill, like 400 yards away from the finish line, because she was so far ahead of me on the run that there was time for her to sit in the shade of a tree and like wait for me to get there. But being the good partner that she was, she waited for me to get there.
So you weren't embarrassed running to the finish line?
Yeah, so like before anybody could really see us, anyway, it was a cool move by her. Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it. We're being partners again. We just decided we're doing I'm doing Texas with special ed over here, but
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
Yeah. Are you gonna run it back with E this year in New Hampshire?
She's still finalizing what she's wanting to do. But yeah.
That's a cool ass range. That was really, Ridgeline was a really, really cool facility. I'm excited about Texas too. Wild Ranch is a very, very cool facility.
Third place is waiting on Ian and Zack.
Wait, that was the first one. Yeah.
So was that trash can at the bottom of the hill on the run.
Wait, that's not Puke Jared though.
No, it was the turnaround trash can.
I've also never thrown up on a run.
I didn't either.
That's the other
cramped on the run.
Yeah. And so for those of you guys that are new to the story, there was a point where Zack almost died on a run, 12-mile run, and
I guess in the past,
that's in the past.
Yeah.
Everybody talks shit about when I couldn't pick up a 200-pound sandbag with Jared when we had to be a teammate and we were both dying of COVID.
We had lost 40 pounds
Cumulative
combined
40 pounds.
like the week before. We looked like we had just come off chemotherapy.
Redemption at Mammoth in a couple days, so I'm excited about that. That will be.
It's going to be fun. It's going to suck, but it's going to be fun.
All right, so what does your 2024 competition season look like? What are you guys thinking? What are you guys going to do? We heard team events, but what else?
Florida looks fun.
Florida, it's a beautiful place for sure. You're right, close to 30A. Pensacola's right there.
Yep, that's around my kids' spring break, so I'm gonna go compete, and then we're just gonna drive to Pensacola and hang out.
That's awesome. Any other matches planned?
Probably the 2 partner events, and then I'm kind of undecided on another one later in the season.
Yep.
I think when I went to Georgia this year, I was too close to nationals, and I was pretty beat up.
Yeah.
Heading into it. But I need to be a little smarter.
Yeah. 2 weeks before was
It was a good
It was
competition.
supposed to be 3 weeks, but there's a bunch of jackasses that compete in our sport. They're like, oh, SWAT roundups that weekend. I can't do it. So we moved the date back. Remember that. You're welcome.
It's hurtful.
What about you, Jared?
The 2 team events. I got to qualify because we're not rolling over from the championship, which I'm not real excited about. I was planning on just coasting on in there.
Not competing
until nationals. But
come back 300 pounds, Jack.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm going to go to Idaho just because that's where the Night Force factory is.
Yeah.
And go visit them while I'm up there. I'm going to check out the CrossFit Games season because I know that Hepner won't be at any of the ones like around those important dates. So I might pop into one when he's busy.
I heard.
I'm pretty serious about that though. I don't like going to competitions and like having to compete real hard. So anyway, that's I'll leave injured if I compete against him. So, but anyway, that's
team event. Hepner told me he's going to bring Spencer Panchik out, and they're going to compete as a team at the team event.
Good.
At YO.
Smash some midgets that weekend.
I also heard there was a 300-pound bag. Did you hear that too?
Yeah, I don't think either one of those two are intimidated by a 300-pound bag.
I think that there's a dunking contest.
Or a baseball throwing contest.
Yep.
And then a barbell where they put the bumper plates on the barbell, and then you pinch grip
from the outside.
From the outsides.
Yep.
We'll put things on the top shelf.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things that we hear so often, and one of the reasons that I wanted you guys to come on today, is people that aren't yet competing. We see it in people in different occupations. Law enforcement's just one of the ones that comes to mind. They talk about not having enough time. Not having enough time to train, not having enough time to compete, not having enough time to whatever it might be. So, Zach, you've got 3 kids between the ages of 6 and 8?
Yeah, 6, 10, and getting ready to be 16.
6, 10, and 16.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, Jared, your kids are now, what, 13 and
9 and 12. Yep, 9 and 12.
And, I mean, you guys, baseball, both of your kids are involved in a shit ton of sports. Like, you guys are constantly busy. Mm-hmm. How do you make time?
My wife's a gangster. She does a lot of running, but I do a lot before anybody gets up. I think you just steal the minutes that you can.
So like work-life balance, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, whatever. It's funny because we joke around about like running into a range with like ammo falling out of your pockets, trying to get magazines loaded really fast and getting a few drills in without people, running into somebody that you're going to talk to, not to be rude, but like I got like 45 minutes to shoot, and I may not shoot for a few days. So you have to hustle to get it in, or if somebody calls and it's important, you got to take it, and it cuts into it, and then that takes that time away.
Right.
But yeah, I think you deal the same thing.
Dedication when you're there, having a plan, going into it, like knowing what you're going to do, not just showing up and screwing around. Yeah. So now, when do you fit training into your day? Because we were talking earlier, and it sounds like you're even working training into like your lunch schedule just to make it happen.
Well, I was going to, and work's been pretty demanding, so I haven't had that opportunity. But I do it first thing in the morning. I go to 6 a.m. class and do some fitness stuff. And
where at?
CrossFit Kokomo.
At a CrossFit gym? CrossFit box.
It's at a box you should drop in.
Yeah.
Be a wad. Anyways.
So like that, I find that funny because early on, my job took up more of my time, and I had commutes, hour-and-a-half commutes on both sides of it. I would wake up at 4:30 because that was the time that I could get in and actually train. Like if you want it, you fit it in your day, you make it happen. Like no matter how many kids you have, no matter what's going on, you figure out a way to make it happen if you want it. If it's something that's important to you, you'll do it, right? So like Jared, now I know you've got a hectic schedule as well. You own a CrossFit gym, you're working on so many other things. Like how do you fit it into your day?
So it's tough, but one thing that I have done is like my truck is made for the most efficient possible way I can get to the range and have all of my stuff in there. Cause like getting your stuff out of your house and into your truck takes like 30, 45 minutes. Then you go to the range, that takes 30 minutes. Then take it out and start shooting and like take it all out, then put it all back up. So anyway, I have my truck set up to where I can pull into a bay, pull out a couple of drawers, and like all of my stuff is there. I also, if I'm going to the range, I know about it ahead of time. So I preload all of the magazines that I'm going to use. And then this is kind of like, oh, that must be nice. But I have 3 pistols that I take with me. So that way when I am shooting, I don't burn up a pistol.
Yeah.
And get it too hot, which is a thing. Like if you just shoot 2 mags of 20 or 3 mags of 20 and continue doing that, even if you only shoot 150, 200 rounds, if you overheat your gun, it's bad. Bad things can happen. So I have 3 guns. And I have little fans that I stick in the chambers, and I will shoot. I typically do not shoot for about 8 months out of the year, and compact all of my training into about 2.5 or 3 weeks before nationals. And if you see me at an event during the year, you are witnessing probably the first time I've pulled my guns out to shoot since the previous time I competed. And like, a lot of the times the soil that it was at the previous event is still on the guns that I'm pulling out like during check-in at the next event.
You can tell by the color of the dirt.
Really, I've made a couple mistakes in business. One, like I own the CrossFit gym. So when I show up, like sometimes there's work that needs to be done too. But up until Janae moved here, which I gave her the 12:30 class, I would coach and work out with the class at 12:30. There was a bunch of pretty experienced people there. So I kind of did both at the same time. And then my wife picks up the slack, like when I go out of town, scheduling people to fill the hole that I leave when I leave to go to a match. And my wife works full time. So it's not like I got my wife sitting at home. She's a full-time pharmacist. And typically right after I work out, I go to the range. When I do go to the range, I have about 35, Nick, you've experienced it. I pull up, I have about 35 minutes that I can shoot.
So you're showing up with that thing at the 3.
Yeah, exactly. And then
there you go, money.
At 2:55, I'm out of there because I got to go pick up my son. And so anyway, I think that there is a large perception that people like Zack and I and a lot of others that do really well in the tactical games are just standing in, a mountain of brass. And as much as you want to say, like, look, I don't have a lot of time, that I don't think they believe it. But like, you've lived here long enough, so you've seen firsthand how much I train, which is like none, except for working out. I work out a lot. But anyway, they're making time is everybody has the same amount of time during the day. Yeah. I hear a lot of people say that it's like, I need work-life balance. There's no such thing as work-life balance if you want to be successful in anything. Exactly. And if you do have work-life balance, you're going to be working for the rest of your life. So get ready to stand by the door at Walmart when you're like 65 or 70.
I think it's important too, with my boys, they're pretty competitive in their sports. And I try to I enjoy being a present, coach and father with them. Yep. Because they're chasing their dreams too. So like when people are looking at time and where to pull from, like that's like you do you, like you're like ninth.
Right.
And that's the way it should be. But I'll say this, like when you're fighting for that ninth spot, your training means something to you. Like
100%.
So the time that I do have is good time, and I am fully invested in whatever time I have, whether it's 10 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever that is. It's invaluable. So for me, it's been pretty good. Like I'll do my reloads and dry fire and stuff in my barn at home after I'm throwing BP to the boys or whatever. But you have to steal the minutes, the downtime, and sometimes you just don't feel like doing anything, but you're slipping.
One of my favorite moments in the tactical games was from the first time I ever competed. I was at Meridian, and nobody knew who I was. I didn't know who anybody was. I'd seen you guys, and I watched you guys throughout the event. But Tim, they were doing awards. They were doing the award ceremony, or about to do awards, and everybody was just kind of waiting around. And Tim came up to you, and he, as you were walking away, And he said, hey, don't go anywhere. Stick around for a little bit longer. And I think that was maybe the first time that you'd ever gotten on the podium.
Yeah.
And I saw the like joy and excitement because you've talked to me about it so many times. You make sacrifices in order to train for this sport. You make sacrifices and like you want it to be worth it. You want it to be fruitful for you. So that to me was one of the coolest moments of the sport. You could see the work that you put in and how joyous you were to actually have achieved that.
Yeah, there's a lot of like stress and time and effort that Instagram doesn't see.
Yeah.
And not just from you, but from your family or whoever that's allowing you to be gone for that time to even compete, let alone all the training that you did in the cold and the dark and whatever. But honestly, like those are great payoffs. It may be just a regional event to some, but for some of us, it's a World Series when you see a return on investment.
Because you're putting so much investment, like personal equity is.
And there was a time early on when I showed up, like I was fresh out of amateur strongman, so I was not like the leanest guy out there. I was praying for a barbell to show up, and it didn't. So I had kind of accepted the fact that, you know what, like I love this sport. It helps me be an asset to my team, to my department, to my family. So I'm gonna keep doing it, and if some good things happen, then they happen. Then the programming started changing a little bit, and it became a lot more functional and I guess realistic in a lot of ways for being fit for what you have to do. And then we started getting a little closer to the podium, and then it started happening. And it meant everyone. I treat every performance out there like it was my last baseball game.
Yeah.
Like you don't know when your last one's going to be, right? We are all prone to injury and things like that, and we've got to be able to grow a little older and be able to play catch with your kids when they're older. So you don't want to completely wreck yourself out here, but it was a pretty awesome moment for me. I remember that.
Yeah.
I specifically remember that.
I know, I do too. That was a cool one. And then when you won in Utah, I think that was the first time you ever won.
I had my son there.
Oh, it was cool. That was a cool event.
I had to take a walk.
I remember you came up to me and you grabbed me and you were like, "Hey, is this right?"
I got in the arbitration line. I got
right?
in line to arbitrate because I'm like, listen, I don't want it if it's not.
Yeah.
I'm like, can you look at it again? And Jake's
just look at all my scores, make sure they're right.
Did you go back and get out of here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody was super stoked for you that one. So one event that you're definitely not going to win is going to be the match that we're shooting tomorrow. So let's talk about predictions for where. Are you going to shoot two-gun now? I think you said that earlier. You're going to shoot two-gun? There's like 22 people shooting two-gun tomorrow.
Yeah. I was fuck.
Can we arm wrestle afterwards for like the championship?
I signed up for this match thinking, oh, cool, I'm going to go have fun with my friends. I haven't shot guns. And then the next time I look at practice score, everybody has signed up.
There's some hitter.
And it's just like, anyway. Kind of there's a lot of stress when there's expectations. I'll just leave it at that. So
I am the reigning champ of the two-gun division of this match. So I beat Sandra Pollard last time.
Yeah.
And I think two other 50-year-old women.
So yeah, it's gonna be fun though.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I think it'll be a good time if nothing else. It'll be good to see everybody out there.
Sandra Pollard is a good story though. She joined my gym 2 years ago, year and a half. It was like
right after you first opened.
After we first opened it, and she came in, and I hope she doesn't listen to this because she's gonna be embarrassed, but she deserves to, kind of for this to be told. She couldn't do a box step up on a 12-inch box.
She was afraid.
Like, completely leaning over, putting both of her hands on her knee and like pushing. I think it was specifically her right knee. And then she couldn't lunge either on that knee. So like she couldn't lunge down and touch that knee to the ground and stand back up. And then she just competed in the intermediate division at the championship this year.
Yep.
And did all of the events, was able to do everything that they did. I mean, it's incredible to see what she's done.
And one of the nicest humans ever.
Yeah. Super smart. But yeah, that's the kind of thing. I would have retired from competing a long time ago if there wasn't specifically 4 or 5 people that came up and talked to me about some things, and that like maybe I should stick around and keep doing this because it does make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
And like whether like him or I or anybody else realize it, like there's people watching what you're doing. And anyway, sometimes it's like beyond you and what you want to do. You have to keep going for it. But anyway, she should be an example. You see these people and they're like working out all the time and all this stuff, and they're like, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. It's like if Sandra showed up and competed and now is like doing really well and, you know, living that life and has essentially gotten her life back. She can do whatever she wants now. She showed up, and there's dozens of stories like that. And then you see people that are like just panicking about showing up to compete. Just show up and do it. But anyway, I just wanted to stick that in there.
No, that's awesome. Sandra's absolutely an incredible story. She's one hell of a. It was awesome to watch her compete. I think everybody got pretty stoked about that. So, Zack, any closing remarks? Anything you want to say before you finish out? I'm surprised you actually were eloquent, spoke well this podcast. Yeah.
Around Jared. I will say this. You know, I watch a lot of people. They're like, I'm training for my first tactical games. Just go. Like, I know I jumped in with my buddy Keith and
Keith Hare. Shout out to Keith Hare.
Shout out to Keith Hare. He would go to all these crazy events that I want to go to. He's always down.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
But find a buddy and just go do the team event together.
Yeah.
I mean, those are awesome events to do. Just you're never gonna be ready to do it because you're gonna think you're ready and you're gonna get on the firing line and be like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready. Like I showed up in Meridian, I'm like, what am I doing here? I signed up for Elite. I saw it on Instagram, had like a couple hundred followers, and then Tim spoke at SWAT Roundup. I'm like, yeah, I'm going. I had just had my bicep repaired in August. I'm like, it should be good. Be good to go. First event, rope climbs. And,
he was standing there on the starting line. I don't know this guy. And he looks at me and goes, man, I'm a little bit nervous about the rope. I just had my bicep repaired, and I don't know what I'm going to do. He has a do-rag on.
And the beard.
Long hair and the beard down here. And I look over, like me and Raven knew each other. I looked at Raven, and I was like, what in the fuck are we doing right now? And anyway, so we run up to the rope rig like a civilized human. I run to the bottom of the rope and then jump up the rope, and Zack runs at the rope, latches onto the rope and like swings out, and I'm just like, I've come to the wrong place.
It was equally as surprising to me after we got off the rope, and I go up and the guys wearing golf shorts have guns that sound like cannons and are full auto on IPSC steel. And my beard is going like this because the comps are blowing. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? And, you know, I made some good friends, and I never stopped coming back.
Yeah.
So make sure, just jump in. Somebody here will help you. The community is second to none, and it gets better every time I go to one of these. I mean, you can find one of us and ask us whatever.
Yeah. Reach out to Jared and just ask him. He loves to help.
Pretty social.
Jared, anything you want to add to this before we take off?
Yeah. I think just like, you know, we're popping into Mammoth last minute.
Yeah.
Like, I'm excited. We're going to have fun.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I'm excited. If you would have asked me 6 months ago, I probably would have said no. But it's because it's last minute, we're not ready to go, and that's why I want to go.
Yeah.
I think that when people come into the tactical games, they feel like that their manlyhood or their worth is going to be attached to their placement in the match.
For sure.
And you need to leave all that at home. This will make you a better person. It'll make you a better athlete. It'll make you a better shooter. And if becoming a better athlete and a better shooter will make you better at your job, that's awesome.
Can we address that before we're done?
Yeah.
Tactical.
I was trying to bait him into this.
It is not tactical. These tactical games are not tactical. I don't care about tactical. Can we just say that you've said it many times? Like, what's not great about being in
Fit.
great condition?
Yeah.
understanding how to shoot and your holds and everything else.
Everything. Like having a complete knowledge of your weapon systems.
To tell me that won't translate in some way to what all of us are trying to do here.
Well, because the thing that you're on looks like something else that's associated with something else.
Yeah.
So there's a correlation that people make there. Like, this is CrossFit, this is bullshit.
We're not going to use it for in-service training, but I'm just, it's something great. It's a healthy outlet to go do.
Right.
I mean, anyways.
I know if you can move better, you can shoot better, you're probably going to be better at your job if it involves moving and shooting.
It doesn't make you the best cop of all time, but I mean,
are you the best cop of all time?
No, and the boys at home would probably say the same thing. I mean, they're roasting me probably right now. I'm getting memed like crazy.
The other thing about this is that, you know, going along the history of the tactical games, which might be like a good thing to do one day, but going along the history of tactical games, there was like, this isn't tactical anymore. We're not doing this anymore. Well, those people weren't paying attention to the leaderboards when that migration was happening to new implements, and higher fitness standards. The truly tactical people with tactical professions started doing significantly better when things got hard, like truly hard. And the shooting standards got higher, stuff like that. All of a sudden you're looking around and you're standing around people that do this for a living, like work behind a gun for a living. But then there was a weird correlation because of the pictures and stuff, that was on Instagram, that they're like, oh, it's turned into CrossFit. This isn't tactical anymore. Well, the people that on an extremely high level work behind a gun every single day were performing better than they had ever performed in the tactical games before, when those changes were made. So don't judge a book by its cover. I mean, like, I know that you go look at practice score and it doesn't say what they do next to them. You know what I mean? But for the people that were in the sport and were making those accusations, like, you weren't paying attention to the leaderboard if you thought what was happening was a step in a wrong direction. And I think that still holds true. I mean, if you look, minus, Hobbit guy, but minus him, if you look down the line of the top 10, there are more people in the top 10 now working in a tactical profession than there have ever been before.
Yep.
And so that means that we are headed in the correct direction.
Well, I think the level of there was early on in the tactical games, there was an expectation that if you did this for a living, you could show up and you could win just because you did this for a living. And then people that started competing in the sport became more fit. They got better at shooting. And I don't think people associated them with their job. They just thought, well, this guy can't be a ranger. This guy can't be on a SWAT team. This guy can't be doing this. And then they find out, oh shit, that's exactly what he does. That's exactly what he is. But he cares enough that he goes out and he works out. She works out. They make their bodies fitter. They spend time working on their understanding shooting. They're putting effort into it to become masters of these different things, to develop mastery of it. And it's kind of crazy that now people discredit those people because it looks like something else.
For me, it directly correlates to our job. When you show up to your work prepared and you're at the top of your game physically, you understand your weapon systems, your tool belt, you're less likely to probably panic in a use of force situation.
Sure.
To where, you're, like I said earlier, you're a better asset to your city and to your department.
So if you do it for a living, why didn't you breach the door on the first try when you had the opportunity to?
When was this?
Anytime that you've ever had it.
That's another podcast.
Two-hitter.
There was rocks. There were rocks. It was sunny out. I was hungry.
I had a fever for a week and a half. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for coming on. I appreciate your time, and hopefully everybody else appreciates what you guys had to say. And thank you all. We'll talk to you guys soon.